QuickBooks Desktop 2024 is here, and it is packed with some of the best features that have been unveiled by QuickBooks. Most exciting changes is in terms of cybersecurity, because QuickBooks now supports 256-bit encryption. What this means is your data is secure for the next 10, 20, or even 30 years, because we don't have the computers yet which can crack 256-bit encryptions as of yet, and that is the exciting news about it. Because even if you are a small business with less revenue, you still want to protect the customer and vendor information that you store in QuickBooks, not to talk about the employee information as well. Your file is protected according to the international standards. Even the US government and military services use the 256-bit encryption to protect their data. You can also use Intuit Data Protect to host your backup files on the cloud so that you can easily restore your backup files if your files are encrypted by a malware or ransomware. There's never been a more better time to be aware of cybersecurity and to protect your own data. Next, we come to customer prepayments. We already had the option to record credit memos and delayed credits to record the amount that we owed to customers or advanced payments from customers. But now we can even add advanced payments and record them on sales orders. So if you receive a list of items that your customers sent you and they paid in advance, QuickBooks will record the amount in the deferred revenue account instead of the accounts receivable account, which is the correct way to do it. And because the amount will be stored as a current liability, you'll be able to record it as income or accounts receivable only when you have provided the service to your customers. So this makes the workflow of using sales orders, estimates, and purchase orders a lot more easier in QuickBooks. Intuit has never been shy about integrating QuickBooks with other platforms and software such as Excel. Spreadsheet Sync is a great example of that. But now in QuickBooks Desktop, users also have the option to use and modify item categories and lists by simply editing the items and lists and categories in Excel, and all of the data that you edit there can be imported into QuickBooks Desktop. And when it comes to price rules, that is, you want to set a particular price for a location or a particular item or for a certain group of customers, you now also have the option to set price rules by item categories. So create categories such as clothing or merchandises and apply a price rule to them. Each category can have a unique price rule, giving you the flexibility that you require in order to record transactions quickly. And along the same line, there are few enhancements to inventory reports, because now you can use the inventory category to arrange the reports in a hierarchical order and filter out the data that you require. So you can use hierarchical categories to arrange your data in reports like inventory valuation, sales, etc. And there's a new report as well, inventory valuation by site. This report simply includes all of the items that you have included in ongoing jobs or pending jobs. Earlier, this wasn't the case, which led to incorrect valuation of your inventory, and you ran out of inventory items before the job even got completed. Now you have the up-to-date and accurate item details, even if you are working on a pending job. There's some good news for human resource managers as well, because the new updates enable you to quickly filter out employees and their information if it isn't complete and required to be filled. The Employee Center is one place where you can get all of the information about all of the employees in your company. And the best thing is, QuickBooks will behind the scene look out for incomplete information for employees and notify you if there's an incomplete information, so that you are never left blindsided. Product updates have also been simplified, because now QuickBooks will download and install the product updates behind the scene. So you won't have to save and close all of your work before you update your software. And if you want to manually update, then you have the option to disable automatic updates, check what features are included in the new update, and then install it. And lastly, this is more of a productivity feature that has been included in the latest version of QuickBooks. When you're working with a lot of lists, you generally have a lot of items in them, and searching through them or filtering the correct items can be a real headache for anyone. So now QuickBooks has enhanced search for all of the fixed asset lists, memorized transaction lists, and any type of list that you can think of. Basically, you can set a look for criteria and select the type of transaction that you are working with. So this overall works like the filter system, but there are more options and more flexibility available to you. You have taken a look at all of the new features, but should you upgrade, and is it worth it? I'd say yes. If you are already on a subscription plan of QuickBooks Desktop, you will get the upgrade for free. But if you are a one-time license user, you will have to purchase a subscription because now all the QuickBooks Desktop plans are available only as a subscription, even QuickBooks Enterprise. There are a few good things and a few bad things about it. That is, you'll have to pay every year to renew your subscription, and if you don't pay, your service will stop. But the good thing is you also get add-on services such as Intuit Data Protect, which protect your data and back them up in real time on the cloud so that you can work without any worries on your accounting data. If you are planning to upgrade, then this would be a really amazing time because, as I have stated, the new features are something that you require, not something that you only want, especially the enhanced security for QuickBooks. To upgrade, you can simply go to the help menu and click on the update option. You will have the upgrade option also available, and QuickBooks may even notify you that a new version is available if you are on a subscription of QuickBooks Pro or Premier. As far as system configurations go, if you have a fairly decent system that you purchased in the last 4 or 5 years, QuickBooks will run butter smooth. Setting multiple monitors is easy, but setting up multiple users requires you to install the software on a server computer and then to connect all of the computers to that server computer so that QuickBooks can access the data file from the network. We are here on the downloads and updates page for QuickBooks. If you want to set up multi-user mode, that is, more than one user is going to use the QuickBooks and you'll be using it on different computers, then you can select yes. Then move on to next. QuickBooks has a new Express setup setting that will allow you to log into your Intuit account and quickly download any of the products that you have purchased. I'm going to go with the standard setup. Select the country for which you are going to download. Select the product. The 2024 edition is available for Pro, Premier and Enterprise. Select the one you have the license for and then select the version that you have the license for as well. Click on search and select download. Wait for the download to finish. It is a big file. Once you have downloaded the file, double click to launch it. If you are not signed into an admin account in Windows will ask you for the password for an admin account. I have an admin account here, so I'll just click on yes. If you don't, just contact the system administrator. So here's the setup and we are going to start with the installation. Click on accept the terms of this license agreement and then click on continue. I've entered both the license and product numbers which I received when I made the original purchase for QuickBooks Pro, and I'll select next. In the installation type, you can choose Express or custom and network options. If you want to install QuickBooks on a single system, Express installation is the way to go. It is much simpler, much more intuitive. Does most of the heavy lifting for you. However, if you want to set up network installation, you want to install QuickBooks on multiple systems and then link them to the server computer that hosts your company file and the software, then you can go with custom and network option. And I'll select install. I'll wait for the product to be installed. By the way, how do you guys like my wallpaper? This is a yin and yang symbol in a cup of coffee. I love coffee. And then there's a post-it note that says Carpe Diem, which means seize the day. One of my all-time favorite movies, Dead Poet Society. Captain, my captain. I guess I'm your captain now. You're heading straight for the iceberg. I'll open up QuickBooks. Let's just wait. So I'll just move on. I'll begin the activation. It is connecting to Intuit and I get the QuickBooks registration form. It is fetching the details. I'll just select no thanks, start QuickBooks. QuickBooks informs me that it has automatic updates available so that whenever a new update is available, it will automatically be downloaded. And when you close QuickBooks, it'll inform you to install the updates. I'll select OK to move forward. To create a new company, I'll select create new company, and this is the QuickBooks desktop setup for company file. I'll select if I want to create it for myself or for someone else. In this case, I'm creating it for myself. I have other options as well. That is, I can open an existing company file. I can convert Quicken data, that is a Quicken file, create a new company file from that. I have also the option to convert other accounting software data. This would be more complex and you will need more technical and advanced knowledge of QuickBooks and accounting in general. And if you are looking to get your data migrated from Sage 50, Xero, Zoho Books to QuickBooks Desktop or online, or the other way around, then go to the link in the description below and sign up for a free consultation, and our experts will guide you through the process. They'll tell you what will it take, what will the cost be. So just go to the link below, select the date on which you want your free consultation, and you will be set. We'll make migrating your data as easy as pie. I have the correct option selected. I'll start the setup. You can sign into your Intuit account if you have purchased other services. I'll sign in later. I'll enter the name of the company and industry because I want to show you how to proceed with this from scratch. I'll select other, none in industry. But if you choose the correct industry type and the correct business type, QuickBooks will overall set up a boilerplate chart of accounts for you so that you don't have to manually set it up all from scratch. Because I'm creating this tutorial, I want to set up from scratch so that I can show you how to create these accounts, what all accounts are necessary. In business type, I can select one of the options here. Sole proprietorship, I have the option for S corporation, non-profit. I'll select other and none because again, I don't want QuickBooks to set up chart of accounts for me. I can enter an email address, and if I have employer identification number and other contact details for my business, I can fill that up here and then create the company. And we are in. This is the entire dashboard for QuickBooks. You have the section for vendors, customers, employees, company, and banking. On the left hand side, you have the menu bar, and then you have the top menu bar as well. Let's start with setting up a few settings. We'll go to edit, then preferences. In my preferences, mark the option to turn off pop-up messages for products and services. This will stop any of the advertisements from Intuit for their own products or services. Select yes to save the changes. Then go to accounting. And here in company preferences, mark the option to use account numbers. Account numbers are not necessary, but they are just good to have, and they really make the process of auditing your books, keeping them organized very easy. I'll choose that QuickBooks not warn me if I'm entering transactions that are more than 90 days past, because I'm creating this tutorial and I'm going to use past transactions, past dates, so that I have some room to show you how the events progress. From here, I'll head over to the reports and graphs tab and save the changes once again. I'll leave it to accrual, but if you use cash basis, you can select this. Aging reports would be age from due date. I also want to go to my preferences. I want to make sure that QuickBooks automatically refreshes any of the reports that I create. This allows me to quickly make any changes by recording transactions, and those changes will be then automatically reflected in any of the reports that I have opened. I'll then head over to the payments section, and in here in company preferences, I'm going to deselect use undeposited funds as the default deposit to account, because I don't want QuickBooks to choose this account whenever I'm recording a deposit or I receive a payment from a customer. And then I'll select OK to save all of my changes. I'll go back to the dashboard, and this time I'm going to customize QuickBooks so that I can work more efficiently. Is that you go to the view tab, and then instead of the left icon bar, you use the top icon bar. This gives you more space to organize more windows side by side. I'll again go to view, and I'll customize the icon bar. I'll delete all of the icons from here so that I can start from scratch. I'll first add the icon bar for the home menu. I'll select OK. I'll select the home window, and in the view menu again, I'll select add home to the icon bar. QuickBooks will add this icon as well as the label to the top menu bar so that I can actually place all of the icons and features and tools that I have to use regularly. I'm trying to make my life easier this way. Let's get started with a few transactions. The first is to start the business with an initial investment. Let's say I'm starting this business with an investment of $20,000. To record the investment, I'll go to banking and I'll select make deposit. QuickBooks will tell me that I don't have a bank account set up to store money in, so I'll have to first set that up. I'll click on yes, and I'll be able to create an account here. I'll select bank as the account type. In the account number, I can select 10011. In the account name, I'll select checking. I'll enter a description. If I have the account number, that is the official account number for this account, I can enter that here as well as the routing number. Opening balance is simply a summary of all of the transactions that happened before, but I'm going to save and close now because I want to start this business from scratch. I've created the checking account. I'm going to select the account, and again I'm going to add a new account. The account type will be equity. I'll continue, and in the account name, I'll enter owner's equity. I'll enter the description. I'll enter the number for the account and save and close. I can enter a description for this particular line item and for the entire transaction. And I'll make this deposit. I'll also change the date for the transaction, and I'll set it to 1st of April 2023. And the amount for the transaction is $20,000. I'll set the payment method for as check and the check number. I've recorded all of the information. I'll save and close this transaction. I've invested the amount and recorded the transaction. Throughout the lifetime of this business, I need to look at some of the key reports that show me how the account balances change. And one of the reports that is really essential to look at is the trial balance. To access the trial balance, simply go to Reports, Accountant and Taxes, and then select the trial balance. I'll choose the date limit as this entire year, or let me just go for all. And because I've customized this report, I can add it to the top menu bar. For that, once again, I'll select the active window for the trial balance, select View, and click on Add Trial Balance to Icon Bar. Select OK. Trial balance has been added to the top icon bar. Whenever I have to access it, I can just select the TB icon here and I have the trial balance. In the trial balance, I can see there are two accounts. The first account is the checking account and the second is the owner's equity account. Checking account is the bank account. When I recorded the transaction, QuickBooks debited the checking account, increased its balance by 20,000 bucks, and credited the owner's equity account and increased its balance too by 20,000 bucks. This balances out the debits and credits side, so I have the initial investment recorded properly. I can go to company and select the chart of accounts. Here I can see all of the accounts that are present in my company file, all of the accounts and their balances as well. If I want to create a new account, I can simply select on the drop down option here and select new. I want to create another account, another bank account, which is a asset account, and continue. The account number will be, and the account name is savings. I'll enter a description for this account and any other information that I really want to store in QuickBooks. Then I'll click on save and close and I'll have this. I don't want to set up bank feed, but if you want to log into your bank account and enable QuickBooks to automatically import all of the transactions from the bank account, then you can set up the bank feed. I'll select no for now. I've created this account as well. Because I've set everything up properly, I'm going to take the first backup of the company file. If something goes wrong, I'll be able to restore the data from that backup file. To back up the company file, I'll go to the file option and select backup company. I'll create a local backup. It informs me that I have two options here. I can either create an online backup or a local backup. An online backup is better because I don't have to store the data on my computer or server and I don't have to pay any extra cost for setting this up. However, I'm going to create a local backup in this case. I'll select create a local backup. The location at which QuickBooks should save this. I can select to add the date and the time to the name of the backup file. This will help me keep track of when the backup file was created so that it will be easier for me to later use it. QuickBooks can also limit the number of backup copies that you create. If I enter 3 here, then so the fourth one you create will lead to the deletion of the first one. I can also set up a reminder so that QuickBooks will remind me to create a backup. In this case, I'll leave the default option. I'll select save it now. I'll create a new folder for it and save the backup file here. QuickBooks will first verify the integrity of the data, make sure that the data isn't corrupt, and then create the backup file accordingly. If I open the file explorer and go to the location that I selected, I'll find I have the backup file here, and if whenever I want to restore the backup, I have the option to go to file. I'll select backup company and here I have the option to restore previous local backup. And I can select the backup file that I want to restore. I have the chart of accounts here and I can see that I have payroll expenses as well as payroll liabilities account. I don't want to manage payroll here and I don't even have the subscription for that here. So I'll inactivate both of these accounts. I have the option to delete accounts as well, but that is highly discouraged because when you delete an account, all of the transactions within that account also get deleted. A better option is to make the account inactive. It hides the account from chart of accounts and from all of the forms and reports that you are going to create. But it won't delete all of the transactions that are associated with that account. So if anything goes wrong or making the account inactive throws the balance sheet off balance, then you have the option to look at the transactions and to diagnose the error and fix it. I'll select the payroll expenses account and make it inactive as well. So I have a few accounts here and I'm ready to record my business expenses. On 1st of April, I purchased a new computer from TechSavvy for 2,500 bucks. To record this transaction, you have 5 main account types. You have the asset, liability, equity, income, and expenses account. Assets are things that are going to provide you future economic benefit. Liabilities are amounts that you owe to others. Equity is the amount that a business owes to its owners. Current assets provide you economic benefit in the current financial period, that is within the year. Current liabilities are due within the current financial year, that is the next 12 months. Whereas non-current assets will provide you benefit over the long run, that is over multiple years, and non-current liabilities are going to be due over multiple years. And then you have the income and expenses account. Income is money that is coming in, expense is the money that is going out. So this purchase that I made was on credit. To record a purchase on credit, I can go to vendors and select enter bills. I haven't yet created a vendor. I'll click on add new, and in this window I'm going to enter the name for the vendor. The opening balance is the summary of all of the transactions that happened before this particular date. So if you are migrating from another accounting software, then this opening balance can be really helpful for you. I don't have any opening balance with this vendor. I can enter other information such as the name of the company and the contact details. In payment settings, I can select the account as well as the preferred method for payment. and the name that will appear on the checks that I write to this vendor. If I and the vendor have agreed to a certain payment terms, such as net 15, net 30, which define the number of days after receiving the bill that I have to pay the due amount, then I can select the default payment terms here. In tax setting, I can mark this vendor as a 1099 vendor. 1099 vendors are independent contractors whom you have paid $600 or more in the current financial year. In account setting, I can select the general accounts that are associated with this vendor. So here I can select the computer equipment account because this vendor is specifically for purchasing computer equipment. In additional info, I can create other custom fields that I want to set up for a particular vendor, and then I'll click on OK. I've created the vendor and I've selected the computer equipment account. In the memo, I'll write a short description for this account. I'll select the date for the transaction as 1st of April, and QuickBooks will automatically enter the date on which this bill will be due. So you can see that the bill due date has been updated. The net terms are 30. So if I receive the bill on 1st of April, then I'll have to make the payment before the 1st of May. In memo, I can enter a description for the whole bill. In the transaction columns here, I can select expenses or items tab if I need to track the item that I'm selling or purchasing to resell, and I can create a new item for that. Because this isn't an item that I need to keep track of, I'll just select an account such as the computer equipment account. I'll enter the amount for the transaction. So the amount here is 2500 bucks. You have the option to enter a memo for each of the line items here. I can save and close. I've entered the bill. Let's go back to the trial balance. In the trial balance, I can see that there are two new accounts. The computer equipment account that I created to record the amount of computer fixed assets that I purchase, and then there's an accounts payable account which QuickBooks created automatically. Account payables record the amount that is due to your vendors. If you purchase on credit, the balance in this account increases. When you pay off this debt, the balance in this account decreases. Because I purchased the computer on credit and the amount was 2500 bucks, QuickBooks has automatically increased the amount in the accounts payable account. On 1st April, I then purchased a printer, but this time I pay upfront. Because I have paid upfront, I won't record a bill. Instead, I'll head over to banking and then select write checks. I'll select the account that I made the payment through. In the pay to the order of, I can select the vendor whom I'm making the payment to. I'll add a new vendor. I can fill in rest of the information for this vendor and then select OK. Because I'm recording this transaction for an item that I don't need to track, I'll select the account to categorize this transaction, and I'll again select the computer equipment account. I'll enter the amount for the transaction, that is 700 bucks. I'll enter a memo for this transaction as well as the summary of the entire transaction. I'll cross-check the amount as well as the date for the transaction. If I'm mailing the check, then I can enter an address and then I'll save and close. I'll go back and open the trial balance, and here in the trial balance, this time when I purchased, I paid upfront. So the balance in the accounts payable account does not get affected, but in the checking account, it does. QuickBooks basically reduced the checking account by $700 and increased the computer equipment account by the same amount. To increase the computer equipment account, it debited it, and to decrease the checking account, it credited it. And the amount for the credit and debit are equal. So we have recorded two transactions. One we purchased on credit and the second we paid upfront. The workflow to record both the transactions are somewhat different, but the principles are generally the same. To record the transaction on credit, you use the bill option, whereas to record the upfront payment, you use the write check option. Let's move to a few practice transactions, and you can pause the video here and try to enter these transactions yourself. You purchase office furniture from Comfy Spaces for 3000 bucks on the 1st of April. You can record this transaction, head over to vendors, enter bills, create a new vendor, enter the vendor name, enter the details that you require, and then select OK. Select the date for the transaction, and then in account you'll have to create a new one because we don't have an account for office furniture. I'll select fixed asset because this is an asset that is going to be with us for multiple years. I'll select continue. I'll enter the account name, the account number, a description, and select save and close. I've created the account. An amount, I'll enter the amount for the transaction. I'll enter the amount for this transaction, which is 3 grand. I can enter a memo for this line item. It is better to have a very descriptive memo so that anyone can easily understand what the transaction was about. And then I can select save and close. I'll open up the trial balance and I can see that the office furniture account has increased by 3000 bucks, as well as the accounts payable account has also increased by the same amount. because again I purchased on credit. On the 1st of April, you purchased an iPhone Pro from Apple for $1,000. Head over to vendors and select enter bills because once again you are purchasing on credit. Add new, enter the vendor name, enter rest of the details and then OK. In the account, select the computer equipment account, enter the address, the net terms for the payment so that QuickBooks can update the bill due date. Enter the amount for the transaction, this time it is $1,000 and then save and close. I can choose the net terms to make it permanent for this particular vendor and I'll select yes. Again in the trial balance, I can see that the computer equipment account further increased by $1,000 and the same is true for the accounts payable account. For the third transaction, you purchase an Apple Pencil for $129 and AirPods for $250 on the 1st of April. And once again from Apple. To record both of the purchases, you can go to the vendor menu and select enter bills. Select the vendor Apple, select the date of purchase, enter in rest of the information that you want. In memo, I'll enter the description for the whole bill, that is purchased both AirPods and Apple Pencil. I'll choose the account as computer equipment and the amount for the first transaction is $129, which is for Apple Pencil. And the second one also goes to the computer equipment account. And for this, the amount is $250. And in memo, I'm going to enter AirPods. I've recorded this transaction and I'll click on save and close. I can look at the trial balance. With each purchase that I make on credit, the accounts payable account is going up and the asset that I'm purchasing, that is also going up. I'll close the trial balance and I'm done with this part. If you weren't able to correctly record these transactions, then simply delete them and head over to the beginning of this section and review the lessons. For now, I'll move on to the next topic, that is managing customers.
You have made an annual payment for this subscription, and even though this may sound crazy, you cannot straight away record it as an expense because in accounting there's this general principle that you can only record an expense when you match it to revenue. Since the payment you have made for the coming months aren't going to affect your revenue right now and you won't be availing those services in the current month, you simply hold that value in the prepaid expense account and month over month you transfer the amount from the prepaid expense account into the appropriate expense account. I'll show you the whole setup and how to move and amortize those transactions so that you can easily work with QuickBooks. But before we start, we have to create a vendor account. We'll head over to vendors and in the vendor center, we'll create a new vendor. We'll type in the name for the vendor. You can fill in rest of the information if you want and then select OK. You have created the vendor. All of the transaction details for this vendor can be found in the vendor center. I'm going to create the prepaid expense account, which as you may remember is a current asset account. Prepaid expenses are going to provide you future economic benefit in the current financial year. Let's create a new account to record prepaid expenses. We'll go to the chart of accounts and then we'll create a new account. We'll create an other asset account which is appropriate for prepaid expenses and QuickBooks also recommends the same. Then select continue. Enter the name for the account, an account number according to the series or sequence that you have created, a description to describe what the account is for, and then click on save and close. You have created the prepaid expense account. I have to record the expense, that is the prepaid expense that I have made upfront. And for that, I'll write a new check. We'll head to banking and write a new check. We'll select the appropriate bank account, the vendor, the date, enter in a memo to describe the transaction, and a memo to describe the line item as well. Then, while creating this check, I'm going to use the prepaid expense account as the account to which I'm posting this transaction. This way, the transaction is not recorded as an actual expense, but simply the amount is transferred from your checking account or whichever account you are paying through and stored in the prepaid expense account. Now I know this sounds crazy, but that is how it works. Select the account or category, enter the amount paid, and then click on save and close. We have recorded the advanced payment we made to the vendor for this subscription. Over the coming months, we are going to recognize this expense, and for that we are going to use a general journal entry. Head over to company and click on make general journal entries. QuickBooks alerts you that it will automatically number the journal entries for you. You don't have to do it manually. Select the date for the transaction, the appropriate account that you want to debit, I'll create a new account here, and this will be an expense account because now I'm going to transfer from the asset account to the expense account. I'll enter in an account number according to the sequence that I set for my company. I'll enter software subscription as the name for this account. I'll enter in a short description to describe what the account is about, and then save and close the changes. I have the correct account selected to debit, and I'll debit it by $50. On the flip side, I'm going to credit one account, and this is going to be the prepaid expense account, and I'll credit it again by the same amount. Then click on save and close. In the trial balance, I can see that the prepaid expenses account decreased and the software subscription account increased, both by $50. I've recorded one of the transactions manually, but did you know we can automate this whole process so that QuickBooks automatically over the coming months posts these transactions for us so that we don't have to manually remember to amortize this expense. The crazy thing is you can simply go back to the journal and memorize it as a recurring transaction. Let's check it out. I'll head over to reports, accountant and taxes, and select journal. This report gives me a list of all of the journal entries of the transactions on the basis of the filters that I select. I'll select the journal entry that I recorded, and this time I'm going to select the memorize option. The automate transaction entry option is the key here because that is what will allow QuickBooks to post the transaction on your behalf. Now, if the transactions are the exact same, which is true in this case, then you can use automated entries for a variety of different tasks such as deposits, sales receipts, invoices, sales orders, and a host of other things. So this can be a really important part of your QuickBooks workflow. If you press Ctrl T, you'll get a list of all of the transactions that you have memorized in QuickBooks, and you can edit the list and even delete any of the memorized transactions. How easy is that? I'll select the automate transaction entry to automate this process of recording. I'll select the frequency for how often I want it to occur. I'll enter the date on which the next transaction will be created, and then the number of remaining occurrences. In this case, I've recorded one of the transactions and 11 more are left. I'll enter a unique name for this template so that I can edit it later, and then click on OK to memorize this transaction. If you press Ctrl T, you'll get a list of all of the transactions that you have memorized in QuickBooks, and you can edit the list and even delete any of the memorized transactions. How easy is that? When you open up QuickBooks the next time, it will inform you to record the memorized transactions if they are due. This gives you more flexibility to review the transaction before it is actually recorded, and you can select or deselect any of the transactions that you want to record. The first is when the customer pays at the time of making the purchase, and the second if the customer pays on a later date. That is, the customer purchases the product or service from you on credit. When the customer pays at the time of the payment, you can create a sales receipt. On the other hand, if the customer purchases on credit, then you can create an invoice. The account receivable account stores the amount that your customer owe to you. So whenever a customer makes a purchase on credit, the balance in accounts receivable account goes up. And when you receive the payment from the customer, you transfer the funds from accounts receivable account to the appropriate bank account. The customer paid at the time of making the payment. So we'll go to customers and select sales receipt. We'll add a new customer at this point because we haven't added this customer. You can enter the customer name. The opening balance would be any amount that the customer still owes to you. But this is a new customer with my company, so I don't have to enter it here. I can enter a different company name as well as the name of the person to make it more descriptive. In payment settings, I can select the account through which the customer regularly pays, and I also have the option to set net terms. The preferred payment option is also very useful because it automatically selects that payment method when you select the customer in a sales form such as invoice. You can add additional info for this customer and you can create fields for that. And if the customer has a big project with you, then you can create a new project and track the job and its expenses. Since the customer makes the payment through a check, I'll enter in a check number. You don't necessarily have to, but using a check number usually allows you to keep track of the transaction while documenting all of the transactions. I have the option to add a new item at this point because I don't have any items added yet. I'm going to have to add a new one. I'll select the service item as the item type. I can enter a name for the item or an item number. This is the main item, it isn't a sub item, so I'll leave the check mark empty. I can enter in a rate for this service. This rate will be per hour, but you can also change the units according to which it is calculated later on. Here in the account, I'm going to create a new account to record the income that is coming in from the sale of this item. QuickBooks automatically chooses the account type as income. I'll enter a number for the income account, and this again will be on the basis of the sequence that I have created overall. I'll enter an account name. This account name won't be for a main income account, but instead for design income only. Later on, if I want to club the income accounts, then I can view that in the profit and loss statement. I'll save and close, and let's just move on. I'll enter a small description for the item, and then I'll click on OK to save this item. I have created the item and I need to update the quantity. So I worked for a total of 4 hours, and QuickBooks automatically updates the total amount on the basis of quantity and rate. I'll update the date. I can also select the number for the sales receipt. And once I've verified all of the information, I'll click on save and close. But there's this option as well to print later, and this option can be useful if you want to print out the check or the sales receipt later on. Enter in a response for the customer as well as a short description through the memo option. This will later help you identify what the transaction was about. I'll go back to the trial balance, and in here this time I have a new account that I just created, which is the design income account, and I also have this account which is the checking account and the undeposited funds account.
When a customer deposits a check and you don't directly deposit it in the bank, you can record that amount in the undeposited funds account. When you actually deposit that check into the bank, you can make a deposit in QuickBooks and record it, and the balance will be transferred from the undeposited funds account to the appropriate account in which you have made the deposit.
I deposited the amount in the undeposited funds account, and later I'll have to transfer it. And to do that, I'll have to look at all of the transaction by customer report. This report is going to be really useful for you because you'll want to review all of the transactions for all of the customers in your company. And if the data does not match, then this report will help you in identifying any of the errors. I'll double click on the sales receipt to open it, and I can see that I've selected the deposit to account as the undeposited funds account. And that is why the value in the undeposited funds account increased by $200 when I recorded this transaction. I'll go to banking and select make a deposit. This option allows me to deposit the check into the bank account. I'll select the check that I want to deposit. When I choose make deposit, QuickBooks will display all of the undeposited checks, and I can select the check and click on OK. I'll select the account that I want to deposit this amount into and the date on which I'm making the deposit. In Memo, I can add a description for the transaction so that I can later identify what the deposit was related to, if it was for a particular job or for a group of customers, and then click on OK. And as soon as I record the deposit in QuickBooks, the undeposited funds account goes down to 0, whereas the checking account increases by the same amount, because what we are mainly doing is transferring the amount from the undeposited funds account to the checking account. This is generally the workflow that most of you will be using. I'll go to transaction list by customer, and I can see that the payment option does not move there. If I go to reports and then the journal report, and I select all dates, and I look at the deposit transaction that I just undertook. Let me just add this as well to the top menu bar because I think the journal report is very important, especially if you use QuickBooks regularly and you want to look at behind the scene what QuickBooks posted as the journal entry. So while looking at the journal entry, I can see that QuickBooks increased the value in the checking account and decreased the value in the undeposited funds account when I recorded this transaction.
If you are planning to upgrade to the latest version of QuickBooks Desktop, or if you are planning to migrate to QuickBooks Desktop 2024 from another software like Sage 50, Zoho Books, NetSuite, or Xero, then you need to know that you need to back up your data and store it, because once you upgrade a company file or you migrate it to a different software or simply from a different version to a newer version, you cannot reverse that conversion, and that is a really important point to note. So just create a second copy of the company file and keep it away so that if anything goes wrong with the upgrade process, you still have all of your data intact. Upgrading your data is very easy. As soon as you import the company file or open it in the newest version of QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Desktop will automatically upgrade the company file for you. Before it does that, it will give you the information that you cannot revert to the previous version, and you will have to agree to that statement in order to perform the upgrade. But if you are migrating from another software to QuickBooks Desktop 2024, then you will have to take care of a lot of different things. Most important of them, data conversion, because there's no direct way to convert the data. But if you are seriously considering migrating to QuickBooks Desktop 2024 from another accounting software, then go to the link in the description below. Select the date and time at which our experts can contact you and inform you what would it take to actually migrate your data. QuickBooks Desktop is obviously great, and so is QuickBooks Online. So click on the link over here to find out all of the new features available in QuickBooks Online in September 2023.